Okay, guys. What is a private IP address? What is a private IP address? If you are in your own LAN communication, either it can be home or it can be in your organization. Okay, you have a devices are connected. Devices are connected. So you can able to communicate between them, either wide way connectivity or maybe wireless connectivity. You are connected and you want to communicate each other. So you need an IP address, right? First is required connectivity. Second one is IP address. Okay. So then you can able to communicate. To communicate within the LAN, so you don't require purchase IP addresses. Simply, you can take any IP address based on your network size and you can configure that IP address. But those IP addresses from private IP addresses ranges only. For example, you have 100 computers are there. So we can use class C IP address because the class C is a maximum number of IP address per network is 254. Okay, simply you can take a class C IP address for 100 systems and within this range only. Okay, if you take 192.168.0 or 192.168.1.0 or 190.168.2.0 like up to 255 we can able to take it. Okay, any one of the network you can take it from the class C and you can configure. So you can able to communicate within the local LAN network only, just like intra network or local or a private network it is. But you cannot communicate outside of the network. Cannot communicate to the internet. You cannot communicate it to the public network with this private IP addresses. Like you cannot access google.com, youtube.com kind of stuff with this private IP addresses. For example, you have installed a server. For example, this is a web server and this is a content, a web page. It is a web server. It contains a web page. All your devices can able to access in the local, like a intranet or a private network. You can able to access these web pages. But someone in the internet want to access your web server, they can't access it. Why? Because of it is private network. It is configured with a private IP. Even you put a routers connectivity, okay, like this, and you are connected to finally the internet, still you cannot able to access it. Okay. So that is called a private IP addresses. Guys, private IP address from class A. From class A, it is 10 network only. Only one network in the private IP addresses. You have an organization, within an organization, you have a more than 65,534 devices are there, means 70,000, 80,000 devices are there. You can plan for a class A, right? But only one network is given for a private. So you can use 10 series, means 10.0.0.0. This is a network 10.0.0.0.1. Like you can configure from 1, 2, 3 up to 10.255.255.255, the 254, and the broadcast is 255, 255, 255. This is the broadcast ID. This is network ID. From here to here, you can able to configure to your devices. Only one network from the class A. Got it? From class B, 172.16 series, one network. Not only one network, guys, from 172.17 network, 172.18 and up to 172.31. These are all private networks only. Almost all 15. If you count, you will get a 15, like a 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 16 now it is. Okay, 31, right? So it is totally the 16 networks are given for a private. In one private network I created, I can use 16. In another private, I can use 17 also. Okay, so 172.16, 172.17, 172.18, 172.19, 172.20, up to 172.31. All are private IP addresses only. The 15 is again public, 32 is again public. Okay, so this is from class B. 16 networks are given for a private. Means, for example, when one private network, like I have my private network, I want to configure 170.16.0 network. So starting IP address is 172.16.0.2, right? It is keep going. So 172.16, 255, 254. This is entirely one single network. The 0 is a 0.0, 172. This is a network ID. And the broadcast is 172.16, 255, 255. This is the broadcast ID. And what is the next one? Again, it is 172.17 will come. So this is a one single network, complete network. Like this, 16 networks are given. So the 16, 17, 18 up to 31, 170.31 is our private networks. In the class C, 192.168.1.0.0. This is the one. Okay. So this 0 is again 1, 2, 3 up to 255. Means 192.168.0.0, one network. 1.0, this is another network. 2.0, another network. 3.0, another network. 255.0, another network. Like this, 256 networks you are getting in the class C. Okay, so the first two are not changing. Only this network portion is changing. This is 0, 1, 2, 3. Like, so I want to configure to a network, like I have a private network, like 100 to 200 computers are there. So I will take one of the things from here, 168. I'll take 1, 0. This is starting. So up to here, 1, 2, 254. This is assigned 1, 255 broadcast. So this is one network. Like this, I am getting 256. So with the 0 dot, 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot, like that it will come. Like a 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and finally 0.255. Up to that, it is one network only. So these are the private IP addresses ranges defined by IANA. So any user, any organization, okay, any user or any organization can configure these private IP addresses to their network without taking any license. No need to pay, no need to take license kind of stuff. Okay. So that is called a private IP address. What are the private IP address? Class A 10.0.0.0 to 10.255.255.255. Entire 10 series is a one single network because it's a class A. The first person is network person. So only one network we are getting. Class B 170.16.0.0 and 170.17.0.0. These are all different private IP address we are getting. The ranging is 170.16.0.0 to 170.31.255.255. This entire range is private IP addresses only. But you are getting 16 networks because it's a class B. If you see the second portion, the second octet is 16, 17, 18 means different networks are. Class C 192.168.0.0 to 192.168.255.255. It means that third octet, if you see that 0 is changing. That means one network is 192.168.0.0, 1, 2, 3, like it will goes on. Okay. And another network is 192.168.1 dot something like that. Okay. So this entire range is private IP addresses under class C. In class C, we are getting 256 networks. Okay. And private IP addresses non-routable in public. Guys, in my organization, I configured so an IP address with this range or maybe in this range. Okay. I was like check it like my IP address command prompt IP config. So I'm using in the organization 192.116. This private IP I'm using. Okay. But in this world, so many people use the same IP address in their network. If you, this is the most common, 192.168 is most common. Some are using 192.168.0.0 network. Some are using 192.168.1.0 network, like that, right? So different places, different private networks having these IP addresses. So it is non-routable in public. So in my organization, what private IP I'm using, in another organization, in another homes, they in their network, in their private networks, they can use same only. Okay, the private IP addresses are not unique. It will be used in same IP address can be used in different places, different organizations, or different home networks also. So it is non-routable in private. Non-routable in private. Okay, we cannot access internet with a private IP address. You configured with an IP address in a private, you cannot access internet directly. You guys understand what are the private IP address, the ranges?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And anybody got a doubt? That is, I given a one statement is here. You can't access private IP address. You cannot access internet with a private IP. But I have a private IP. But I'm accessing internet. I can able to open Google. I can open YouTube. All these things are internet related only, right? I have a private IP, but how can I access internet? Anybody?
Any VPN, sir?
I don't connect it to VPN. Even you want to connect it to VPN also, you need internet. VPN is required to connect VPN. Good. Anyway, that is good. Just my plan to if someone is respond or not, you responded means you are listening. That's a good thing. Okay. Okay. there is a technique called a NAT and PAT technique. So here it is. I have a systems in my home. I have a laptop, mobile phone, and other laptop is there, desktop is there, okay, and a tablet is there. So all are connected in the private network only. All are connected to private network only. Either Wi-Fi or wirelessly, they are connected. You like my laptop is having a private IP address. So I can able to communicate from here to here without taking internet connectivity. Not required any internet. In private, I configured private IP addresses. So I don't require any license to configure that IP address. Next, I don't require internet to communicate from here to here. But when I want to communicate outside, so then I need a internet connectivity, right? That is common. So I'm connecting to the router. Okay. And router is connected to the modem. Modem is connected to ISP, Internet Service Provider. Through Internet Service Provider, I'm connecting to internet. But still, I'm having a private IP address. How can I communicate with my private IP address to the internet? Thing is, there is a NAT technique is there. NAT, Network Address Translation. In the routers, generally, we configured inside the router, it automatically the router will do that job. Okay. So like this is first step. Okay. So look at here inside, for example, I'm using a IP address 192.168. So 1.11. This is 1.11, for example. Okay. For example, I have a server configured with this private IP. I have a server which is configured with this private IP address. When I'm communicating inside, it is an IP address. When I want to communicate outside of the network, means in the public, so I have to purchase public IP addresses. Private IP address, no need to buy. But public IP address, you must buy. For example, I am getting a public IP, is like a 189.99.100.11. I purchased it. Okay, this is a public IP address. Okay, so for example, this is my server. For example, a web server, and this IP address is 192.168.1.11. Okay, if this server want to communicate from this system or system server, whatever it is, from one side communication I'm talking, I want to communicate outside. So first I will went up with my private IP address only. But when it is going outside of my network, it goes with a public IP address only with a 199.99.100.11. This is the IP address. It will went outside and go outside and connect, communicate. And when we are getting reply, we reply with this public only. And again, it is translate back to the private IP and connected to our system. Okay. So NAT is a thing. So you have a private IP. With the private IP, you can communicate outside with some public IP address, which is mapped to your private. Same way, if you have a multiple servers or maybe a devices are there, systems are there, so you can able to communicate to inside to outside, outside to inside, both the ways. You can use a private IP. So, for example, I have a 10 computers are there. All these 10 computers want to communicate outside of the network. So what how many public IP, how many private IP address have? 10 computers, means 10 private IP addresses are having. Then how many public IP address have to buy? 10 public IP addresses have to purchase to communicate to the public. Understand the guys? Mapping private and public IP address. Very good. Here it is. As I said, I have some web server. Means in our 70s, we created a web server. So then people can able to access. Actually, we have some web servers and we created some LMS server also. That is for students who can able to read the materials and as well as they can write the test. Okay, using a LMS server. So that server is in our server room only. And people who are accessing, they will access through the internet. They will access through the internet. Like this, they will access through internet. But it is configured inside with a private IP. But public people, how can they will access? They'll access with a public IP address only. They will access with your public IP. Like this. Maybe this is a public IP, for example. They'll access with your public IP. They reach up to here. They reach up to here. Again, it is translate into the private IP with this IP. Next, it will connect it to the private IP and it will get that request information and it will respond again with its private IP, but again it is translated to public IP and reaches to the user. Okay, so this is an advantage of NAT. NAT means you can able to communicate outside of the network with the public, but you stay private inside of your network. Okay, inside it is a private IP. When you are communicating outside, you use the public IP. Okay, so that's the point. Mainly, you have a more number of devices and you require more number of public IP addresses. Okay, there is 10 computers required to communicate outside or outside to inside. So you required 10 public IP addresses. So this is called a static NAT. Okay, and of course there is a dynamic NAT is also there. That concept is also same as a static NAT. Okay, point is you required more number of IP addresses, public IP. This is one. Next, guys, as I said, if you have a server, so your servers are required to communicate from the public. So then compulsory you have to configure NAT because your server is in a private network. But in your home or in a basically in our offices, in your home, generally you have more number of devices. For example, in your home you have a, for example, I have a laptop, another laptop, desktop, mobile phones, like that. I have more number of devices are there. So for example, I have a 5-6 devices are there. So I have to purchase at least 5 or 6 public IP addresses. If I have to purchase public IP addresses, it is not much easy, right? I have to pay for that one. Why should I pay? It is cost for me. Okay, so I cannot pay. So what happened exactly in our internet, way of access? Okay, this is our router modem to connect your ISP. ISP connect you to the internet. Point is, you have to access google.com, you have to access facebook.com, you have to access youtube.com. But you are not required to access it by someone, right? You are not required. I no need to access your system directly with your IP address. I no need to access, right? You are not a server, there is nothing is there. Okay. So that is not a concept. It is a concept is you have to access outside of the network, but you are not required to be accessible. So then there is a technique called a NAT overload technique. NAT overload technique, also called as PAT. What is a NAT? Network address translation. PAT means port address translation. What NAT will do? It take your private IP and maps to the public IP address, right? For example, I purchase this private IP. I don't buy. So actually ISPs maintain my public IP address. Okay. What NAT will do? It take private IP, it map your private IP to a public IP. But there is a problem is there. So I will put one more zero here to avoid confusion. Okay. So there is a thing is like this. I have a more private IP addresses. I have a 10, 20 private IP addresses are there. It means I have to purchase more number of public IP address. It is not suitable for a home users or small organizations. And that too, these are the desktop systems not required to be get access from remotely. Okay. So what I will do it, I use, I done a mistake. No, I will cover this one. Okay. So what I will use it, I will use instead of mapping one private to one public, I will map all the private IP addresses. I'll map all the private IP addresses to one single public IP address. What I have done, instead of mapping one private to one public, I map all the private IP addresses to one single public IP address. So this is called a NAT overload. NAT means one private, one public. What is NAT overload? Multiple private IP address and single public IP address. Okay, you can take single or maybe you can take two or more. Okay, so that is called a NAT overload. But how it is possible, like a one system, one private to one public is okay, but multiple private IP addresses, but multiple public IP. Now these people are already started this drilling kind of stuff. Okay. So how it is possible? We use a port address translation technique. What is a port? When the 1.11 system sending a request to outside, so our router will assign a port to it like this, some port number to it. Okay, some port number to it. So it depends upon the request. And the same port number, it will map to the public. Okay, so like this. So for example, 1.12 sending a request to outside, it maps to a port number, a random port number, and same port number is mapped to its public. So multiple private IP address can communicate with a single public IP address with the help of port mapping to it. Okay, that's why it is called as port address translation. That's why it is called as a port address translation. So no need to buy multiple public IP address. Anyway, you are not purchasing any public IP address if you are using a internet. Inside you check your laptop or mobile phone IP address, you got it from your Wi-Fi router, it is a private IP only. But if you check in the Google, if you check in a Google, go to the Google and type what is my IP address. What is my IP address like this? It displays a public IP address. Okay, it displays a IP address as your IP address. Why? Because of the Google also don't know. The Google also don't know your local IP address. It does not know your local IP. It knows your public IP only. In case if it is happen to see in your network, you have a 4 or 5 things are there, like laptop, mobile phones are there. Check all the internal IP address. All are different. You may get 1.11, 1.12 for one system, 1.15 for one system, 1.110 for another system, like that. All private IP addresses, individual systems are different. Like your mobile phone, laptop, all are connected to same Wi-Fi, but you will get a different IP address in the private IP address only. But if you go to their browser and check what is my IP address, then it will display almost all same public IP address only. Why? Because of this public IP address assignment will be taken care by your ISP. And when you are communicating from your inside to outside of communication, your private IP address is translated to public with the help of port mapping. That's it is port address translation. In this one, you can able to communicate from your inside to outside of network. But if you send a request, then you will get a reply. Okay. If you send a request with this IP address and actual request goes to this one, like you access a gmail.com with this IP address, it reaches gmail.com with this IP address. And you will get a reply with this IP address and it is retranslated back to this IP address and you will receive it. Okay. If you send only, you will receive it. But for example, Google want to send a packet to you. Facebook want to send a packet to you on its own. They know your public IP and I know your public IP, for example. I want to send some ping command to you. I can reach up to your public IP only, not to your system. Okay. I want to hack your system with your IP address. I want to I want to do something to your system with your public IP. Now I know your public IP. I want to attack with your public IP. Or maybe I want to send a packet to your with your public IP. Because private IP is non-routable. I know your public IP, but I want to reach to you. I cannot reach because in the PAT, what happened? All these public IP addresses are only one public IP is assigned to the multiple devices. Which device I have to reach? Which device I have to reach? So it is one-way traffic type. You send a request, you will get a reply. If you send a request with your private IP, it is translated to public and reach the destination. From the destination, you will get the reply to your system. But from destination, from on other from internet, I want to reach your system directly. I cannot reach with your public or private IP. So that's why it is automatically secure. Okay. So you don't require any VPN to secure your network. Of course, if you do any illegal activities kind of stuff, any cyber security people given a complaint, any complaint noted to the cyber security, they will trace back because all these translations with the packet data, so it will be stored inside your ISP log server for a certain period of time, not 6 months and 1 year. So almost all 1 month, 60 days, something, there is a log server data is there. So they will store this information to whom you are send a packet with your private IP and public IP mapping. So there are something. If any complaints you done something wrong, like you nowadays, some people are putting this WhatsApp messages or Instagram, Facebook, threatening messages like based on their different statuses, right? Opinions, different false opinions, fake news spreaders are there. So I went to enter, I posted in a Facebook with a fake account. I created a post which is against to some community or some group of people or some technical people, right? So what happened? If someone is put a complaint in a cyber security department, they can trace back to you immediately. But if in something guys, your account is hacked and your someone is, nowadays it is happening in a Facebook, someone with your name and things, what they are doing is they ask a friend, please give me 1,000 rupees, it is urgent. So my mom is in hospital. And you don't think like it is your friend photo. So many days back you are communicating. So immediately will send 1,000 rupees. Okay, then it is 500 rupees once, 2000 once. You trusted, then you are giving a 5,000, 10,000 like that. So finally, what happened? You find that is your friend is already dead, or maybe he's not your friend. So it is happened. Even it is happened to me also. But that time it is a really person because by chatting. So next time onwards, I'm not trusting anybody messaging through my Facebook kind of stuff. Okay. So immediately you have to lodge a complaint in cyber security. They will trace back who is the person from there who is sending it. So they can able to trace back if it is they are want to do it. Okay. If serious offense, definitely they will trace it. Okay. So government is not watching you until unless you do miscellaneous kind of stuff. Okay. That's the point. Okay. What is the NAT and PAT? NAT is Network Address Translation. PAT, Port Address Translation, also called as NAT overload. NAT maps inside means your private IP address to outside means public IP address. Devices can communicate in a private with a private IP address. When they communicated to the public, they use public IP address using NAT technique. In a NAT, we have to map one private IP address to one public. If you have 10 private IP addresses, you need a 10 public IP addresses. That is, it maps multiple private IP addresses into one public IP address. It means you can use the simple private IP addresses, multiple private IP address, we can map to the single public IP address with a port address translation using port mapping technique. Okay. This is NAT and PAT techniques. In our regular internet communication, what we are using is actually port address translation. Okay. Anything people want to say something? For Mookie business, I cannot take this part of class. ARP is also a good protocol to explain, but it is need an interaction. Do you like that? I will show you this. Okay, I'll put this one. Then I will give you a small break. Then we'll continue. Okay. Okay. So here it is. Every device must have an IP address to communicate in the network. We can assign an IP address. We can assign IP address manually or automatically. Manually means you have to configure IP address to the network adapter manually. So if you configure like this, the IP address we call it as a static IP. Static IP address can be changed manually but not automatically. See, here it is. I'm going to the control panel. Okay. In the control panel, go to the network and set what it is. Network and internet, network and sharing center, change adapter settings. See the adapters like Zerala adapters. This is an adapter is configured with an IP address by this DHCP server. It is already configured by the DHCP server, which this adapter is actually connected to me to the internet. So then I choose another adapter to show you that how to configure IP address manually. So this is some auto configured IP address, wrong IP address it is. So I am configuring an IP address to this adapter. So this is IPv4. Okay, so what do you have to do? Double click on the adapter or right click, check the IP address, and you want to change the IP address manually. So go to this properties, go to IPv4, just click on the IPv4 properties and use the following IP address to configure manually. The first option is to get an IP address from DHCP server. The second option is to configure your IP address manually. I am configuring an IP address, and some IP address I am configuring is 172.17, then 20. Some IP address is working or not working, I don't mind. So when I click on this subnet mask, based on my IP address, it is given the default subnet mask. It is a class B IP address. Okay, it is generated a subnet mask. And if you have a default gateway, you can give the default gateway address also. If you do not have, you don't need to specify. To communicate within the local network, within the private, you don't require default gateway. If you have a DNS server, so you can specify your DNS server address also. 8.8.8 or 4.4.4 are a DNS server address. If you don't know what is your DNS server address, in case if you know it, but still you want to add some more additional DNS server addresses to your adapter, you can add like 8.8.8 is a default DNS server addresses. 4.4.4, 8.8.8 is a default DNS server addresses. In case you don't know or know your DNS server address, you can add this additionally. Okay, this is how to configure an IP address to the adapter manually. If I check it back, you can see DHCP enable no, and it is showing an IP address tree. If you see, there is no DHCP server address here because it is configured manually. DHCP enable no means the IP address configured manually. And also it is not showing DHCP server address means it is configured manually. You can see the physical address, IP address kind of stuff. So I configured IP address manually. Guys, understand how to configure IP address manually?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Automatic. Automatic means the IP address configured to the network adapter automatically by a DHCP server. In your network, you have a DHCP server or a Wi-Fi router, which is act like a DHCP server. In your home, if you have a Wi-Fi router, from Wi-Fi router, your mobile phones, laptops are getting IP address when you are connected. Okay, how it is? Inside your Wi-Fi router, there is a DHCP server configuration is there. It is act like your DHCP server. In some organization, they use Windows Server or Linux servers. Okay, used to as a DHCP server. Okay, if you get an IP address automatically by the DHCP server, the IP address we call it as a dynamic IP address. The dynamic IP address changes automatically when it connected to the different networks. For example, I got an IP address. It is a DHCP based IP address. I will go for ipconfig/all. You can see it is DHCP enabled, means the IP address is configured by DHCP server. You can also see there is a DHCP server address. Means this is my DHCP server which configured an IP address to me with this IP address. Okay, so you can see IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, DHCP server address, DNS server address, the lease duration also from the DHCP server. Okay, in case today evening work is completed, I disconnected my PC, I shut down my PC, I went to my home, and again I connected. Yesterday what happened, I thought there is a meeting at 8:30, so I went to my home, I immediately opened my laptop. Then I connected to my Wi-Fi router and I got some other IP address. Why I'm getting some different IP address? Because of the DHCP. Again, that is a different network, so I want to connect it. But manually means again I have to change. Manually means I have to go to the adapter, double click, go to the properties, go to the IPv4 properties based on that network. Again, I have to change the IP address. Okay, if it is I am using manually means I have to change my IP address again based on my other network. But what happened here? It's a IP address is automatic. So if you see here, it is I use obtain IP address automatically, obtain DNS server automatically. Meaning is I am telling to this my adapter get an IP address from DHCP server. So what this adapter is done, it got an IP address from DHCP server. So it is this IP address configured by DHCP server. So that is dynamic. Then I disconnect my PC, I went to my home and their network I connected. Again, based on that DHCP server will give me an IP address. There also have a router. It is also act like a DHCP server. It assign an IP address to my adapter. So I no need to change manually. I will get IP address automatically by the DHCP server. That is assigning IP address automatically. Okay. So dynamic IP address change automatically when it is connected to different networks or sometimes to the same network when connected and disconnected happens. When you connect or disconnect from the same network or when you connected to different networks, the IP address automatically change by the. So these are the steps how to do it. So obtain IP address automatically means you are saying to get an IP address from DHCP. Use following IP address means you're telling configure IP address manually. Okay, these are the steps to configure manually. These are the steps to configure automatically. Check the send IP address. If you check the IP address, DHCP enable yes, and you find DHCP server address, means this IP address configured automatically by a DHCP server. That server address is also here. And if you check an IP address DHCP enabled no, and there is no DHCP server address, means IP address configured manually. Okay. So this is also a point how to check IP address. You got IP address from DHCP, is IP address configured manually, like that. If you want to configure it as manually, what to do? If you want to configure automatically, what to do? Manual configuration is always a headache because you must know the IP address, which IP address you should configure and what network you are using. You should not enter wrong IP addresses or already taken IP addresses. You should not configure. Automatic means you'll get an IP address from DHCP, so no problem in it. Of course, sometimes you'll get it. That's the difference. Yeah. Yeah, take a break, guys. Then we'll go for a OSA model that is actually left main in a networking. That is one main important point. It is there. What is the OSA model? Different OSA layers are there. We will discuss about different OSA layers and protocols and port numbers. Okay. And if possible today, I will try to show you that difference between OSA and TCP IP and how to troubleshoot with the OSA model. Okay. And I want to tell APIPA model also. This is also good, but we cannot able to, maybe we'll see. So we have to spend little more time today because again, tomorrow is Saturday, Sunday. So your batch has to be complete. Main topics, hardware completed, service desk completed, network also should be completed. Remaining topics, we can do it in a week or 2 weeks, we can complete it. Okay. Take a break, come back in 10 minutes. Okay. So come back by 3:45. Okay. Just relax, have water, have tea or coffee to avoid your sleeping. Join immediately in 10-15 minutes. Don't wait. Take a break, guys.